planning to join, please send them a message to join. So it's 8:02, another 3 minutes, 8:05, we will start. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Tipsy. Good
Good evening,
evening,
ma'am.
Dr. Urmana,
Good evening, ma'am.
Aditi, Jessa, Kamlesh, Mariam, Pearl, Ma'am Elizabeth John. Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
It's okay, you can put on your video for the time being. No worries. Once the our guest starts speaking, that's the time we can put the video off. Nice to see you all. Few more minutes and then we can start. So I'm hoping more will join. Hi Jessa, nice to see you after a long time. How are you? You're muted.
I got a new job, ma'am, in Yashoda Hospital, Hyderabad, as a
Oh,
AGM. So I put up resignation there, Columbia. So thank you. Monday I joined.
great. Nice to see you again. Yeah, great.
Thank you, ma'am. Nice to-
Ma'am John, good evening. Hi Madhavi, good evening. One more minute and then we will start. So, good evening, friends, and a very warm welcome to Signia Healthcare. And we are bringing a series of special conversations with special nurse leaders. As a preamble, I would like to say that, maybe 10, 12 years ago, the PhDs were kind of reserved for academicians, and we always thought they are the people who go ahead and do PhD, or they have done it and then they come to service. But recently those things are being rewritten by some of our nurse leaders, and I'm hugely glad and honored that I'm able to showcase three of them who have recently completed their PhD in the last few months, and during the COVID. So it's very heartening, and Signia Healthcare wants to do whatever is possible to motivate nurses to rise up in their profession, and we will do whatever it takes to showcase the success stories of nurses so the future nurses can get motivated, and the future of nursing can look better. So thank you so much everyone for joining us. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome Dr. Elizabeth Joseph. May I request Dr. Elizabeth to come on the video, please. Good evening. You are muted.
Good evening, Tangam.
Good evening. With permission, I'm going to call you Elizabeth. I hope that's fine. Yeah?
As always, no.
Great. I'm so excited about this series. And thank you so much for being first on the podium, as I would say, because there are two more people who will come in future days. So uh, thank you so much for giving time and being here. And we look forward to a nice interactive session. And I had a little bit glimpse on your thesis and I was super excited. I said, wow, that is also something that is, taken care in PhD. And I think more and more service people will come in. We are going to have more relevant studies, I guess, that we can use for better patient care. I'm really excited to have you with us today. So before I start having my little chit chat, I would like to play a prayer song for all of us to start the session, remembering God to help us. Yeah, just give me a moment.
जो कभी रोशनी दूर तक न दिखे जिंदगी में कभी जिंदगी कम लगे जो कभी आदमी से डरे आदमी जो दिलों में कभी प्यार की हो कमी भटके ना तेरा इंसान भटके ना तेरा इंसान कोई रास्ता निकाल लेना मालिक संभाल लेना हमको संभाल लेना हिम्मत हमें तू देना मालिक संभाल लेना मेहनतों पे जिए भागे और दौड़े हम जिंदा है जब तक जीना ना छोड़े हम और कभी जो लगे रौनकें खो गई भेजना पेड़ों पे पत्तियां तू नहीं सुनसान डालियों पे परिंदे उतार देना मालिक संभाल लेना हमको संभाल लेना हिम्मत हमें तू देना मालिक संभाल लेना मालिक संभाल लेना हमको संभाल लेना हिम्मत हमें तू देना मालिक संभाल लेना
After remembering God, we are ready to start now. So Elizabeth, once again, a very warm welcome to this session. Just give me a minute. Something started playing. Okay. So, how are you keeping today?
Great, Tangam. Have been having some crazy days, but yeah, super excited to be here to share my experience, which hopefully should benefit a lot of youngsters.
Yeah, I think not only the people who are present here, we are streaming it live on Facebook and we will be uploading this on our YouTube so that it remains there. If anybody has any doubts when they want to do, doctorate while they are working, they can always come and get some inspiration from the videos which will be uploaded. There are live audience may not be that big, but then slowly people will hear about it, and more will definitely get inspired with your story. So what I would like to do is do a little bit of introduction of yours, so that everybody knows who is Dr. Elizabeth Joseph. So it was very interesting to see your experience. And I share with you that you are a critical care nurse. So I said, oh, that's something that I share with Elizabeth. That's really great. So you have started your career in 1990. That's what I understand. And you have worked in NHS also after working as critical care nurse. Then spent some time in the academia. You have been a tutor, vice principal, lecturer at LT College, and you have been educated in nursing from one of the premier institutes of the country, SNDT University, so where you did your BSc and MSc, and then you have done your hospital administration. So that's a very illustrious, career that I can see here. So I have, first of all, when I saw this, I thought I must ask you that you were teaching nursing, and then why did you decide to come to service?
Okay, so teaching at some point of time got a little monotonous for me, and somewhere I moved out of SNDT also because there were certain policies or certain regulations which were not in favor of hiring teachers or tutors or lecturers on a more permanent basis. There were certain policies. And that's the time I got an offer at Wokhard Hospital, and hospital which was just coming up. And the profiles seemed very interesting. And today, when I look back, almost about 18 to 20 years of my career in the operations side, it's just interesting because in operations, as you know, you've been heading operations as well. You never know what comes into the door next minute. There's always surprises. There are always challenges. There is a kind of an adrenaline rush where operations is concerned.
I know that is something that I miss, I guess, the adrenaline rush. Then I tell myself maybe now it is not the time to get too much of adrenaline rush, not the age to get into adrenaline rush. I have to, console myself. But I remember seeing you many years ago when I was in Fortis, and probably that was in Fortis Faridabad, right? You came as a NABH assessor. Okay.
Yes.
So I always looked at you as a person who is very close to quality and safety, And that one meeting was, for me, I was very impressed with whom I met and whom I came to know. And I'm very glad that we have stayed in touch. And, we continue to stay in touch. And I'm extremely happy that you could accomplish this amidst all these things, and salute to you that you have, stayed in the same organization for so many years. I mean, they should be really lucky to have a nurse leader, for that long, because sustainability of leadership is one of the major requirement for sustained improvement in any healthcare setup. So that's really very nice. So I would like to know that when did you think of pursuing PhD, and why did you think of doing it?
Okay, so I was very clear when I finished my graduation that I want to do my post-graduation nursing. That vision was very clear. And at that time, if you have to do your MSc in nursing, you need to have a minimum of 2 years. So when I completed 3 years, I started looking very seriously about taking up my master's in nursing. And as you said in your talk, during those days, people who wanted to continue, PhD was a rare thing. Those who wanted to continue in the academics really pursued with it. Those who moved on to the operations side were quite comfortable with just the master's degree. But I had my father who kept instilling in me as soon as I completed my master's that you have to do your PhD. He's no more, but he's the one who first sort of put that thought into my mind. And while I was doing my master's, I got married, children, family, and somewhere it fizzled out. But after my father came, my husband who started nagging me, saying, "No, you have to do your master, you have to do your PhD, and why don't you think about it seriously?" But nothing happened. I mean, I said, yes, I will do. I kept pushing it. And my boss, many of you all know him, Dr. Parag Rindani, who's been my boss for quite some time. Every KRA discussion, he would set aside some time for me, saying your personal KRA PhD has to be done. For some reason, I kept saying yes, and the priority was just not there. Till such time that about 3.5, 4 years ago, a senior colleague of mine who lives in my neighborhood came to my house, and we were just chatting about something, and she said, "I've enrolled for PhD." So I said, okay. And she went on to actually give me the details of how she went in for the entrance exam and where did she go, and how to go about with it, where is the university. And I think the eureka moment happened then. Till then the thought was there, but it was just in hibernation. But when she started talking about it, I felt that there was a go-to person if I have any problem in doing this. And my family was listening to me, and they just looked at me as, "What are you waiting for? It's all there now, just grab it." So as soon as she left, I called up Shine, who will be the next person to talk to, a very good friend of mine for many years. And I asked her, "Shine, PhD karna hai." And before I could even complete my sentence, she said, "Okay, let's do it." So though the thought process was there and a lot of people kept talking about it, and I kept brushing it aside, as I said, it's just when the person who interacted with me and made me feel that there's nothing difficult, you just have to get into it, and slowly started explaining to me how to go about with it. I guess the comfort came in then, okay, let's do it. If I have something, I have somebody to, ask or somebody to fall on. So that's how I started my journey.
Great. So your story's very interesting that you had people around who were actually motivating you. So I think that is a key factor, so that someone dreams along with you and keep on making you remember that this is a dream. So I think that's an advice to everyone. When you dream of something, you better tell maybe a few people that I want to do this, and then when you forget, then at least they can remind you that this is something. So you have been lucky that your father, your husband, then your children, and then your boss, and then this the guide that you came along. So I think that is also important, that there is someone who can guide you how to go about doing it, right? Though many are doing PhD, but I think each university, they have their own ways of uh, getting people enrolled and completion of things. So I think that is something I hope our would be PhD sitting here and here going to hear on this recorded video is going to remember that find people who will motivate you, not someone who will demotivate you. There can be, I'm sure that, did you have people who told what the hell, you have reached, you have reached all this way, you have reached up here, now why do you want to do PhD? I've heard such thoughts. I would say that maybe when it comes to learning, maybe the opportunities didn't come to me that easily, I would say, in my life. But I grabbed whatever could get. But yeah, maybe I wish that someone pushed me also like that. So I tell my son, when I'm 70, I'm going to New Zealand to do my further studies. So I keep telling that dream, if he remembers and pushes me, I'm sure that I'll do it. So I think, did you face naysayers? I mean, did you face people who were kind of telling, why do you want to do it?
No,
Do now, and anyway, you are doing so fantastically well in life. So why do you want to do it?
not a single person said that, Tangam. Even if
Okay.
one person had to say, I'd probably just take a backseat. But
Oh,
people around me were all like, no, you have to go ahead with it. You have to do it. As I said, my family were my pillars, and at workplace as well, the same group of people whom I've been working for the last 18 to 20 years. And they just kept saying, you have to do it. And there's not a single person who said, no, you shouldn't be doing this. And it's a little late in life to do nothing of that sort.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So that means you need a motivational environment. And now, but was it difficult? 3, 4 years of work?
Yeah. So if I have to look back, if you ask me, did I face some challenges and was it difficult for me? I think when we are set to embark on something like this, a long-term achievement in life, and we look at, okay, what are the possibilities that I may fail? What are the possibilities that I can move up? Uh, when I look at it from my perspective, I would bucket them into two broad categories. You have the family whom you have to take care, and there are challenges but that can come, and you have challenges at your workplace. These are the two broad categories for me. And as I said, I'm like blessed to have these challenges as my strength, both these areas. On the work front, at the home front, as I said, children are grown up. Um, they are all very enthusiastic about seeing that things happen. And is there anything that we can do for you? And um, I just have to say that the next few hours I have to shut myself and I can't do anything all this weekend. I'm not available. They're all ready to take charge of the house, whatever way, but they're ready to take charge of the house and leave me alone and make me comfortable in whatever I'm doing. At the work front, as you said, I've been working with Wockhardt for almost 18 years now, and the senior management is super excited to have me go through this entire process. I said, Parag, who was my boss, and he's one guy who kept pushing me and saying that you have to do it. We used to have a lot of brainstorming, a lot of discussion. The team that I worked with and I'm working with, I can see Pearl and maybe Shine and Devashri. I mean, these are people who really encourage me. And even after they left, Dipti, Mariam, Lydia, these are the people who really sort of, whenever I got stuck somewhere, we would just sit into a brainstorming session and they would come up with a lot of ideas. And I always very strongly believe the youngsters have a lot of idea. You just have to give it to them. You just have to tell them, and it's probably throw some ideas into them, and they would say, okay, fine, let's look at how we do it. So there have been challenges, but as I said, most of the bigger challenges have been my strength. However, it wasn't very easy because that was also the period when I was on the technical committee for NABH, and we were coming up with the 5th edition. So there was a whole lot of work which was happening on that front with very tight deadlines. COVID happened, pandemic happened, which made it even more difficult for us. A lot of stress, physically, mentally, we were all exhausted. But the icing on the cake or the rainbow in all this was my guide. We have a guide which was assigned to us by the university. I think she played a major role in getting us focused right from the beginning, right from selection of the topic to spelling out the objectives and setting timelines. So she just sat with, Shine has the same guide. She sat with both of us and she fully well understands what our responsibilities and what are our difficulties as nursing leaders. So she sat with us one day and she just chalked out a plan. Next 3 months we do this, next 6 months we do this, this is the time for submission. At every time she would ask us, are we comfortable with this? And we just said, just draw the plan and let's see how well we can fit into it. So this was very clearly defined, and she was very clear within 3 years we need to complete the PhD. We shouldn't be dragging it too much. So we tried keeping up to the deadlines as much as possible. And whenever we didn't, she would very nicely nudge us in a very gentle way saying, ma'am, is it ready? Can we, have the first draft of whatever you're working on? So we would sit. There were nights we had to sit, long nights, looking at our material. There were days when days of frustration. I remember especially when, I sent my first draft for the plagiarism check. And you need to have certain percentage, not more than 8 or 10%. And somewhere sending it the second time, third time, fourth time, though it kept reducing, at some stage I was really frustrated, So I had my cheerleaders at home, my family telling me, no, mama, you can't do it. You've come down to this level, you can't do it. And my guide, telling me, no, it's not impossible. It will happen. Just don't get frustrated. So there were difficult times, coping up with work, coping up on the home front, coping up with newer challenges like the pandemic, coping up with NEBH. So it wasn't a very smooth ride. At the same time, probably because I was really wanting completion and setting my priorities, I think I managed to move along.
Great. I think that's a very motivational story. And during COVID, making something like this happen. And when I imagine that if I am in your place, yes, it looks very daunting. So I would say, hats off to you for managing that. And so that brings us to the study that you did. It's very interesting. After I saw your slides, I thought, wow, that's pretty close to my heart. So how did you select that topic, and how did you shortlist that this is what I would like to do?
So the study is about basically about patient experience and making sure that patient who leaves us remain loyal to us. And this is something that we had started working at least about 7 or 8 years ago. Defining service standards for nursing is what we started off with. And over a period of time, when we were looking, I was searching literatures, I got more and more convinced that as nurses, we play a major role in ensuring that the patient has the right type of experience. One, because we as nurses spend a lot of time with our patients. I think we are the only people in the organization who spend a lot of time with the patients. Two, because we are the biggest task force. And if the biggest task force is able to create an impression on the minds of the or minds of the patients, I think your battle is fought. When I was scanning through literatures, I found a lot of interesting articles wherein I found that nurses can play a major role in ensuring that patients are satisfied. They may forget, like one of my bosses used to say, they'll forget a burnt chapati or they'll forget the discharge didn't happen in time, but and a medication given wrong or a nurse being rude is something the patients do not forget. And it's important for us to feel for us as nurses to make patients feel good about whatever they are going through. And that's how I started working on this. Another focus that I had also in mind is in order to overcome one of the challenges that we were talking about, is to shortlist and work on a topic which is very close to my heart, just not close to my heart, but something which is what the organization is also concerned about. Like if I had to do a study in the community, it becomes difficult for me because it's a totally different setup. But if I have to understand the needs of my organization, which is what I did, we went through feedbacks. We would go through feedbacks. We have three different, something that I will talk about it in my presentation. We have three different types of capturing feedbacks. And when I looked at the three top complaints in the organization and within nursing, I thought this would sort of serve the purpose of bringing about a radical change in the way nursing looked at patients and focus not just on the clinical aspect, but also on the service aspect. So that's how I decided to go ahead with this topic.
Great. I think now maybe the time that we should allow you to talk about your thesis. So that is the part that I hope the participants here will be learning from. Apart from getting motivated by the story, the study itself should be known to many more people, and then we can look at the applicability of that other organizations to improve the patient centricity. That's the way I'm looking at it. Now, before we get into that, just a very quick question is that how did your nurses cooperate with you, your own team, in the younger ones? How did they support you when they came to know that you are doing the PhD?
So my immediate team members, the nurse managers and my council heads were super excited about it. And we moved in such a pace that the focus was not just carrying out this project as a part of my PhD study, but also making them understand that by doing the strategies that we are adopting, it is going to bring a lot of satisfaction to our patients, and it is also going to empower our nurses. So many of the strategies that we have adopted is also focusing on empowering the nurses to do the right things at the right time, thus ensuring that our patients are also happy. So uh, my team of nurses are super excited about the fact that I've been able to complete, especially the nurse managers. They said, you are a role model for us, and we're very happy that you've completed your thesis. So that's how it is.
Great. So the audience who are here, so I will say that once Elizabeth finishes with her presentation, you people are free to ask any questions to her after looking at the summary of her. So by the way, how many pages was finally your thesis?
Oh my God, good question. Oh, I know I'll have to check that. Finally, after the bound copies and everything, I'll have to really check that. But yeah, I think it was close to 500 plus probably.
That's a whole lot of work.
Yeah.
Okay, without much delay, let me invite you to share your presentation and tell us about your thesis.
Are you able to see the screen, Pangam?
Yes,
Okay.
we can. Yeah.
So this is the title of the study, a very long title, but what is important is the words that I've highlighted, which is talking about patient experience and quality of nursing care. So these are the two words that I want you to focus on, and which is the crux of my study.
If you move to the left down, there will be a forward and
Yes.
backward. Yeah.
Yeah. So before we start with the study, I've got this very apt quote from Mahatma Gandhi, which is very applicable to my study, I should say, which is talking about customer. And the quote goes like this: customer is the most important visitor on our premises. He is not dependent on us. We are dependent on him. He is not an interruption in our work. He is the purpose of it. He is not an outsider on our premises. He is a part of it. We are not doing him a favor by serving him. He is doing us a favor by giving us an opportunity to do so. And many a times when we look at our customers, when we look at our patients, I think this is what we sometimes tend to forget. You know, patients come to us to ask questions, and we give them that the body language is like you are interrupting our work. And we all like to behave that the hospital is ours, and people who are coming from outside, the patients is an outsider on the premises. So from the patient's perspective, when you look at service excellence, if you ask a patient, or if we have to talk about what excellent service is all about, I think many of our patients would say excellent service is all about good quality of medical care. It's about efficient processes. It's about having a comfortable environment. It's about having caring and empathetic staff. It's all about professionalism and confidence. At the end of it, when at the time of discharge, the patient feels it was worth the money spent, and there is accurate and complete information given to the patient time and again. So the basic concept of when we talk about quality of nursing care, quality is a big dimension. And what I have done in this study is I have focused on few parameters which will in turn enhance quality of nursing care from the patient experience perspective. And these are mainly touch points, scripting, grooming and etiquettes, and teach back. And what I will do in the next few minutes is actually focus a lot on these four areas, because As Tangam said, these are easily doable and these are things which can be easily applied to any of the organizations, a good take-home message. Now, when we talk about touch points, now these are touch points that the team and I, my nursing team and I, we sat together. We did a lot of brainstorming to see what are touch points in a hospital. Now, if you read up on touch points, it's nothing but a make or a break decision from the patient's perspective. Touch point is an interaction that a patient has with any of the healthcare givers in the organization. And based on the experience that the patient has during that touch point, or around that touch point, the patient will either have a positive experience or a negative experience. So we decided to map the touch points for our nursing department. And these are some of the touch points we've added, we've shortlisted. The first touch point being when you are admitting a patient. After admission, there is an assessment which happens. Every time a nurse hands over to another nurse, it becomes a touch point for the patient. Any procedures, while you do any procedures for the patient, that is a touch point. While you are monitoring the patient, while you're giving medications to your patient, ambulating the patient, teach back. I'll come to teach back a little later. When you are feeding, you're counseling, or you're discharging a patient. So these are some very important and critical touch points that we have defined in the organization. And as I said again, important thing to remember regarding touch point is it's a make or a break decision for our patients. Now, once the touch points have been identified, the next step that we did is we tried to work around scripting. Okay? Now, when we talk about scripting, this struck me, whenever you fly airlines, you have the air hostess is making the same announcement before landing, during landing, after landing, very scripted fashion. And one of the feedbacks that keeps coming up within the nursing department is about communication, that nurses are not able to communicate as effectively as we would want them to be. So we looked at creating different type of script. Now, scripting is a tool which is made for nurses to interact comfortably and confidently with the patient and the relatives. It is a pre-written communication. So this is an example of a script which is written for our ER nurses, which says, "Good morning, sir, ma'am. I am, Elizabeth, your ER nurse, and let me guide you to the emergency department." So as soon as a patient comes, this is how the nurse speaks to the patient. And then various scripts written about when you put an IV band or when you have to put an IV line. So there are various scripts that we have actually written down for our team. Scripting is a tool that is designed to give you the guidelines for handling any given situation more effectively. When you have a script or when the nurses are trained on a script, it becomes very easy for them to talk. They don't have to really start thinking, oh, how do I explain things to the patient? There is a script which is there and they only have to articulate and put forth their script. Now, remember one thing, the flip side of it is some people look at it as what happens if there's something else that the nurses have to talk. So we try and identify as many situations as possible or as many situations where difficult communications are expected and we work around a script for them. The third concept that we worked on was teach back. Now, this is a very interesting concept that we worked on and we got a lot of good feedbacks about this. So this is all about tell me, I forget. This is what Ben Franklin said, teach me and I remember. Involve me and I learn. Teach back is a way to confirm that you have explained to the patient what they need to know in a manner that the patient understands. Now, typically in a hospital environment, there is a lot of information overload for our patients. So when the patient comes into the department for a surgery, for example, the doctors would come and say, you have to be fasting, you have to do so-and-so investigations, you have to shave and prepare the part, you have to take chlorhexidine bath has to be taken and so on, and they just leave the unit. The nurses will come and give a set of instructions. Physiotherapist comes and gives a set of instructions. At the time of discharge, there's a whole lot of instructions that we keep giving our patients. Okay? Not really understanding whether the patient has really understood what we are talking. Now in teach-back, what happens is we give instructions to the patient. So at the time of discharge, I take the discharge summary. The RMOs have already explained the medications. I take the discharge summary. I take out all the medications that the patients go home with at the time of discharge. I take out each medication and I say, okay, this is tab dolo. You will have to take this once in the morning, once in the evening. This is tab rantac. You need to take this once in the morning, once in the evening. Once I have finished with the 4 or 5 medication, I tell the patient, now can you repeat and tell me back what you have understood? So this is an opportunity for the patient to explain back to us whatever he or she has understood. And it is a great opportunity for us to understand whether the instructions that we have given the patient are understood in the manner that we want them to. So sometimes it's so it could be just teaching them, it could be having demonstration. So if the patient is going home with insulin injections, the nurses teach them how to give insulin and you ask them to return back. Maybe the next dose of insulin, they actually do it on themselves and show us how it is done. Sometimes the patients go home with nebulizations. So you identify various opportunities. It need not happen only at the time of discharge. It could happen at any point of transition of care. Now, there are numerous studies on teach-back which says that the readmission rates to hospitals have drastically reduced because of teach-back, because the patients are very clear about what they are supposed to do. Specifically so in chronic conditions, when the patient goes home with a CKD or the patient has gone home with diabetes or hypertension or some sort of malignancy, specifically in chronic conditions, when you do a teach-back, the readmission rates have come down. So this is something that we have implemented in the hospital and which is working very well. Why did we choose to do this study? The need for the study. As we all know, hospital in Mumbai, we have a lot of competition. So there's a competitive market, technology with each hospital. Each hospital coming up has better and newer technology. They have better and newer infrastructure. Today, patient has a wider choice. Everything is available at the click of a button. They know which hospital to go to, which hospital has what facilities, what type of doctors. So they have a wider choice. The marketing department has newer strategies for marketing the products in the hospital. There's a change in the physician engagement model and accreditations and so many other recognitions that hospitals get. And in all this, service standard is the only game changer. I think if you are able to give good services to your patients, that is the only reason why a patient may want to come back to your hospital. So this was the reason why from the hospital perspective, we decided to go ahead with the study. Now from the patient's perspective, why was it needed? Because again, literatures talk about how patient experience actually sets pace for quality of care. In fact, patient experiences actually impact clinical outcomes. A patient has a lot of information that can influence his decision. He can decide where he wants to go to, and there's a lot of information that is readily available. Today's patients are not focused only on clinical outcomes. They are willing to pay money, they want good clinical outcomes, and they want very high levels of service standards as well. There's strong there's strong advocacy about health. And when the patients are happy, when the patients are satisfied, it creates a customer loyalty. And it is also important from the consumer protection right and acts. Now, why was the study needed from the nursing perspective? We all know, and we are all living with this, we have very high attrition rates, high levels of mobility. Nurses keep moving from one place to the other. They move from various places to cities, and they also move internationally. And as they move from one place to the other, there is a lot of change in the culture of the way hospitals are run, in the way patients come in. Nurses spend a lot of time with the patient. As I said, they are the link between patients and other healthcare professionals, and they create the greatest impact on the patient service because they spend a lot of time with the patients. And nurses are the ones who have got the highest number of touch points with the patient. If you compare our nursing department with any other department, I think nursing the nurses have the highest number of touch points. So these are some data which talk about, I will not go into the details of this, but it basically talks about attrition rates at a global level, at a national level, and and it talks not only about the attrition rates, but it also talks about the cost that attrition brings to the organization, and the costs are huge. Now, the problem that we had at hand, the reason why we chose this topic, coming back to your question again, Tangam, there was a lot of feedback coming from patients and from consultants about the communication skills, about the service standards within the organization, communication not up to the mark. When you conduct interviews, you would find poor grooming standards and communication skills not up to the mark. So while our nurses were very good clinically, when it comes to service standards, the knowledge was really limited. And there were gaps in training related to grooming, etiquettes, and service standards. So this was a problem that we had in hand. The entire literature review was split up into 4 aspects, and it was basically touching on the 4 aspects which I spoke to you about, which was service standards and patient satisfaction, review of literature related to touch points. I reviewed a lot of literature related to scripting and also related to teach back. The objectives of the study, a lot of objectives, but in short, the objective simply was about assessing the knowledge level, the perception level, and the competency level of the nurses regarding patient service. There was a behavioral model introduced, and there was a post-assessment done. So that is what the objectives talk about. Scope of the study.
Who drank milk over today? Who?
Anita, could you please mute yourself, Anita?
Scope of the study, we looked at how this could benefit our patients in regarding to service excellence. The focus was on enhancing patient experience, increasing patient satisfaction, and helping our nurses to go beyond just signs and symptoms. It's not just clinical management, but going beyond that. It was important for brand building of our organization and sense of empowerment that it would give our nurses. Because once the nurses are able to identify touch points, they have script as a tool, as a weapon to talk to the patients, they felt really empowered. Patient loyalty and making nurses aware of the good etiquettes that earns respect and loyalty. In regards to touch points, we were able to map the touch points. We were able to identify the points of contact, and we started building our training around the touch points that we had identified. Again, it helps to improve patient satisfaction and hence build up a therapeutic nurse-patient relationship. This was about scripting, how scripting could benefit us. It would help our nurses to communicate confidently, help them to handle difficult communication. There was standardization and consistency in the way things were communicated. That was important. And communicate confidently around the touch points and sense of empowerment given to the nurses. With regards to teach back, successfully we were able to transition care of patients, recognize comprehension and understanding levels of the patient, able to explore psychosocial fears of the patient. This was something which came out very well because patients are too scared to ask us, their doubts. Because there's always a sense of impatience that healthcare professionals portray to the patients. So we are here to tell you this is this and you're out. Okay, so when we started talking to the patients, when we started working around touch point, around teach back, a lot of psychosocial fears, and believe me, this is not just with patients. These are fears which were also found in many of the medicos. Doctors who were admitting their relatives, nurses who were admitting their relatives, where we presume, they're doctors, they understand everything, or they're nurses, they understand everything. Sadly, it was not so. They had a lot of fears. When it comes to their own, they have a lot of questions, a lot of doubts that they kept asking us. They prepare patients and relatives for discharge, identify areas of difficulty faced by the patients because you could really understand the clarity of thoughts, and assures a nurse that the patient has understood the instructions that were given. What were the benefits for the patient? Positive experience and positive outcomes. Increase the patient satisfaction. Patient felt secured, understand and comprehend instructions, Teachback helped the patient to reflect on the care, ensuring continuity of care in the right manner, and patients spend quality time with the healthcare workers. For the hospital, defining service standard was a major differentiator. It helped them to enhance patient experience, patient loyalty. Patients spoke about their positive experience, and it also helps to increase footfalls to the hospital. The theory part of it, I will just quickly run through. So this was the research methodology where we looked at a research approach, quantitative and qualitative research approach. There was a research design. We looked at the population who are nurses. We looked at the sampling technique, the sample size, and also looked at what are some of the methods of data collection. Phase 2, we had the pre-test. After the pre-test, we implemented the behavioral interventional model, which included all of this. We're talking about touch points, scripting, teach back, and grooming. And then there was a post-test. And phase 3 was analysis and interpretation, writing, research findings and report writing, and conclusions were evaluated. Sample selection, these were some of the inclusion and exclusion criteria. Nurses who were available at the time of data collection, those who are willing to participate in the study, those who are currently working in the clinical area, and who can read and write English. Exclusion criteria, not willing to participate, those are not available at the time of data collection, and nurses who are on leave at the time of data collection. Now, I have not put in all the slides when it comes to analysis and interpretation, because that's a huge material by itself. But certain things which were relevant, I thought I could share. So when you look at demographic data in terms of gender distribution, and I think most of the nursing leaders here and the other nurses will agree that bulk of the nurses who come to us are really very young. You know, they are close to 50% is between the age group of 20 and 24. A lot of freshers. So 0 to 2 is about 53. But even if I write 0 to 6 months, I don't think there would have been too much of a change in the percentage that we see. So bulk of our nurses come to us young. They just pass out from schools and colleges of nursing and they come to us. Many of them are staying in the hostel, which also meant that they are nurses who come from outside the city. They do not live in Mumbai, but they're coming from outside, which is what I was telling you about the cultural sensitivity that our nurses, have to have when they are being deployed in the organization. So bulk of our nurses came from outside the city, and everybody knew that there is a system in place where we capture feedback from our patients. Now, we have a 3-dimensional approach for capturing our feedback from the patient. There are daily administrative rounds which happens on the floor, which comprises of somebody from the general admin, medical admin, and the nurse manager of the floor. They meet up every single patient every day. And the idea of doing this is that on a daily basis, we are able to do some sort of a service recovery. If there's some issues or problems that the patient face on a daily basis, concerned department get involved and service recovery. There is scope for service recovery. At the time of discharge, there is somebody who takes feedbacks from the patient, and there is a company which has been outsourced who gets in touch with all our discharge patients 1 week after discharge. So there are 3 levels at which discharge is captured in the organization. So there's a lot of data which keeps coming in, and there's a lot of material available for us to see what are some of the areas that our patients are not happy about. So it comprises of both open-ended as well as close-ended questions. So patients are free to write their feedback. Now, I will not go too much into the details of this, but suffices to say that if you look at the pre-test and the pre-intervention and the post-intervention model, when it comes to knowledge of service excellence or knowledge about touch points or about teach-back method related to grooming, bedside manners, communications, there was a lot of improvement that the organization had seen in terms of the interventions that were carried out. And the behavioral intervention model was effective in bringing about a change in the knowledge, perception, and the competency level of nurses. Some of the recommendations that has come out from my study, I will not go in any specific order, but I think I will just start from the time a nurse enters a college of nursing or school of nursing. I think there are some from some of our colleagues from the teaching side as well. I remember as a student, when we were taught procedures, it was broadly divided into before the procedure, during the procedure, after the procedure. There were 3 steps. Now, scripting is something that we can start as early as college days. So if we can have scripts, so if we are taking vital signs, for example, what are some of the things that the nurses have to tell the patient? Okay, so I'm so and so, I will be checking your temperature. After the vital signs are checked, what are what are the things, or what is the type of communication that a nurse must have to the patient? So if we can start from the college days, right from the time a young nurse gets into the system. And this is to be done for every procedure, every patient care interaction that can be that is to be done by the nurses. Teach back again is something that we can incorporate very well into our curriculum in the schools or in the colleges of nursing. One of the recommendation that I have written also is that while we focus a lot on clinical experience, which is very, very important so that the nurses have good hands-on experience, I think, and we spend a lot of time designing or planning our clinical experience in various hospitals. So if you have to go for obstetric experience, where do you go? If you have to go for ENT experience, where do you go? I think it's worth spending some time and some thought on if we have to talk about service standards. Does it help that we send our nurses to maybe hospitality industry, where they can spend some time with people at the reception, seeing how they interact with the patient, or invite somebody from the hospitality industry where they can talk, or have some module on service industry where they can talk about service standards, about communication skills, about interacting with our patients, and so on and so forth, because this is something that we really don't do. So I think that's with that, I finish my presentation in brief.
And now I have few questions, but I will hold on to that. I'm going to ask the participants here in the Zoom meeting room that if you have any questions to Dr. Elizabeth, please unmute. You can come on video and ask the question to her directly. I have a feeling that a lot of people who have come here are people who are kind of thinking that they would do PhD someday. I have a feeling when I look at the names, that there are people who are thinking, someday I will do PhD. Yes, please go ahead and ask question. Please, you can unmute and come on the video and ask the question directly to Dr. Elizabeth. There was a question in the chat box. This was asked by Anita D'Souza. How was the sample size arrived at?
Okay, so we just took about 30% of our population, and this is something that we had discussed with the guide, and based on the discussions with the guide and based on the number of nurses that we currently have. So we have 2 hospitals in Sobo and Novo. So depending on what percentage of samples can be taken for pilot study, and the rest of the samples that can be taken for the actual study. So at random, I think we've just selected about 30% of our total staff.
Okay. Anybody else has any questions? Hello.
Ma'am, it's Pearl here. Can I go ahead with one question?
Yes, Pearl.
Yeah, ma'am, I just wanted to check. Sorry, I must have missed a bit because I had my daughter troubling me in between. Oh, I know her. Oh, I know her. She's looking at your face and Tangam ma'am's face, and also I must have missed this bit. But I just wanted to check. When I read the problem statement, it was speaking about the patient experience. So, so what was the end result of this entire scripting and teach back and all? So how was your patient experience? Did it shift on a very positive note? I mean, how well did it shift?
Yeah. So when before implementing this study, Pearl, we had a lot of information. As I said, the data which was collected, feedback which was collected from the three various sources, the daily feedback at the time of discharge as well as at the time of at the end of the week. We had a lot of complaints about communication. Nurses not communicating. We actually had a patient who said, I was just shifted on the bed to the sonography room and nobody told me where I am going. So that is the time we focused on scripting. And actually, we did see a radical change in the way communication improved to the extent that it became a learning for not only nursing. I think everybody started talking about scripting in the organization then. We did have very good feedbacks from the patients, and few of our consultants actually said, have you started doing something different? So there was visibility on that front. Now, to be honest with you, one of the challenges that we face is, so we did a lot of teaching, training during the pre-COVID time, and things were being sustained at that time. During the pandemic, a lot of things went haywire because a lot of nurses left, new nurses came in. And when they came in, we had, the system was totally different. I mean, management in a COVID hospital was totally different. So we did slip. And now the effort again is to get back to, scripting, touch points, teaching and training them. So what I understand from this, and I think it's going to be an experience for everybody, is that you cannot do the study and come out and expect it to be sustainable. It has to be done day in and out. It has to be a part of your induction program. It has to be a part, just as we have our induction module defined for maybe fire safety or CPR or BLS, and then we have an ongoing training program. This has to be a part of the curriculum, and it has to be driven from the top.
Right. Thanks, ma'am, for answering the question. I think for me, the takeaway, what I liked about is giving some experience for our nurses in the hospitality industry. I think that could be a good shift. And, that is where, because like you said, clinically, yes, they come out very, very good. But when it comes to these certain aspects, which the consumer of nowadays expects, they don't expect hospital anymore. They expect a hospital with a hotel-like services. And I think that would be a key takeaway from me. Thank you so much. And I know there's a lot of efforts gone in this. I do not have the courage to pursue PhD as of now, but looking at all three of you who have been very inspirational in doing this. Yes, Tagam ma'am, we will thank you for arranging this session. We are inspired to take up PhD, and hopefully in the near future, yes, we will do it.
So Pearl was, Tangam, I just want to place on record, Pearl was the first person who worked with me about 7 years ago, where we sat and we defined what service standards for nurses should be like. So that was a base document on, on which we started work. So thank you, Pearl, for that contribution.
And I think I should thank you for allowing me to do these things, because I've learned a lot in the journey. Thank you so much.
So we are also seeing a mentor and mentee here. I think that's a very heartening story. I had a couple of questions. One, that did you have to translate the scripting into Marathi also, apart from English? Because not all the patients, they understand English, right?
Yeah. So as of now, the script is only in English. And because we have very few patients who do not understand English, but as of now, it is only in English. Maybe in the second phase, we will have to at some stage, we will have to translate that to Hindi and in Marathi as well.
I'm a strong believer in scripting. I think as early as 2008, we did some work around scripting on some touch points, not all touch points, but some touch points. Definitely admission was one of them. Giving medications was, so we scripted all these in English, and then we translated them into at least Hindi. And the challenge definitely, as you said, was the sustainability. And it was probably way ahead of time, maybe. So it really needed someone pushing and, all the time. And then we did measure the patient complaints once the scripting was introduced. It was part of the induction. So how about your patient complaints? And I think most of the hospitals nowadays, they are measuring NP score. So if you just keep out the COVID time out, did you see any difference in the patient complaints and in the NP score?
Yeah, so that's what I was just telling Paul about. We did find a drastic change. In fact, after we very aggressively got into scripting. So we defined what are the times you will do scripting. So at the time of admission, at the time of transfer of a patient, at the time of giving medication. So there are about 5 areas that we focused on: pre-op transfer, post-op transfer. And we definitely found, that's what I was telling Pearl just now, we definitely found a huge difference uh, in the scores. Communications definitely improve. But as I said, nurses keep moving, nurses keep changing, and this has to be a fiber of the organization. We cannot just do the study and say, okay, fine, we achieved the result. It has to be a part of the induction program, and it has to be a part of an ongoing training program. So today, what is happening is the scripting is a buzzword in the organization now. You know, whether it is scripting, whether it is talking about touch points, it's not just the nursing department, it's also about talking other departments talking about it. Like today, for example, we had some infection control meeting, and the microbiologist was outside the meeting. He was telling me, we having some issues with sample collection, urine culture. So he said, why don't you write a script for that? So I said, okay, fine. Everybody is talking about it now. So it's a good concept. It's a very good idea, but there's a lot of effort that goes into making sure that it gets implemented the way we want it to be done.
So if you quantify the scripting, how many you would have written so far?
So when we started off, we had for admission, discharge, medication administration, pre-op care and post-op care. These were the areas that we had started off. Then the next phase, we moved on to departmental specific. Like say, for example, in the emergency department, there are certain specific things that you would want to talk about. So we have developed a script for emergency department. During COVID, we were into telemedicine to a great extent, having some sort of a consultation. So we've developed a script for that. Now we have started this concept of discharge nurse, where the discharge nurse calls up patients and talk to them about, checking on how they do. So there's a script for that. So I think what is slowly happening is every time we plan a new function or we plan a new profile, scripting automatically becomes a part of it. So now, for example, if people are talking about the billing department, communicating with the
Sorry, you got muted, Elizabeth. Can you just unmute, please?
Yeah, okay. So as I said, it's not just within the nursing department that we are finding scripting gathering momentum, but the other departmental heads are also moving in the direction.
Great. So you have so many scripts. I'm sure that the nurses may not remember all of it. So do you give them a booklet or something that they can remember, and what to say? Because it will take a little time before they memorize all this, right?
So what we usually do is when nurses are inducted into the system, there is one session on service standard. And as an ongoing thing, what we also do is, we have induction 5 days a week, every day for about 45 minutes to 1 hour. Now, before we start the induction, the actual topic for the induction, we take up one script. So vital signs, this is what the script is like. So it's a sort of a revision and a repetition which happens on a daily basis. And I think that's working for us.
Okay. So there is nothing given to them to refer to or something to remember that, okay. So that's working. Okay. That's good. So I have a couple of more questions here, and I think I can take 4 more minutes because we are 9:11. We started a little late. So what was the experience of nurses who participated? Asked by Devashri.
Okay. So Devashri was a part of this as well in the beginning.
Okay. I wouldn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
But I would want to know, once it got implemented, how did it really go? We were very much part of it at the beginning, and in fact, as ma'am said, these these themes or these concepts were probably part of, we were building on these concepts as a part of our new hospital in the South Bombay. And I think ma'am took it to a different level altogether.
Thank you, Devashri. To answer your question, Devashri, how do the nurses feel about it? Initially, they feel a little hassle because we tell them how to, we give them a script and we ask them to talk. But once they get used to it, I think there is a comfort which sets in. And specifically when it is about, I think a lot of positivity was there around Teach Back. So when they tell our patients, or when they teach our patients, or when they prepare our patients for discharge, and then they give them a set of instructions, and then they say, can you teach back and tell us what you have understood? Patients were very, what should I say? They were very happy about the fact that there is somebody who's spending some time with me and trying to understand whether the instructions given to me are clear or no. And when you get written feedback from patients, and when we share these feedbacks with the concerned nurses, they feel very happy about it.
Great. There's a couple of more questions. Quickly, I'm going to ask that. But before that, I just have a thought around Teach Back, because I think this is one of the most powerful communication tool that is around, just like your read back and call out and check back and all this stuff. And when I do leadership courses, I do ask the participants sometimes, just go back and on the day of discharge, try to understand how much the patient can tell again. So that's the time they actually realize the power of Teach Back. By and large, many nurses, they know it is Teach Back, but unless and until we go and verify on the day of discharge after somebody has taught and you have not done the Teach Back, because that's another opportunity for further, study also, to see that, if you teach a set of patients and you continue to do the way it is, and then you start introducing seriously Teach Back, I totally believe in that, because unless and until you ask someone to repeat back, you never know what they understood. And very rightly you said it reduces the readmissions, and it also reduces post-operative complications, because they know how to look after themselves when going back. Usually many patients, they just think, just knowing the medicine is good enough, which is not good enough. They have to do many other, activities for any surgery that you take apart from medicine. So I think that is a very powerful touch point that you have taken in the study. So here they are asking that, did you script for medication administration?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
And what I would suggest is we need not copy, or we need not get, ready-made tools from outside. I think what suits the organization, whatever suits. So scripting is not something that you need to copy paste from another organization. It's like SOP. It's something that is tailor-made for your organization. So you sit with your team and see whatever language is comfortable to them, and whatever is the need of the organization. You just sit and start working on the script.
So Jyoti Sharma is requesting, please share the link of your whole thesis or website so that we may use for further research work.
Sure.
Is that possible?
Sorry?
Do you have it, sir? Your entire thesis?
Yes.
Is there a
yes.
link that can be shared?
I will have to check that out, but let me see how well we can do that.
Okay. So once you share, then Jyoti, we will share with you also. Okay. Great. Anybody else has any question? Because we are about to wrap it up. This is being shared live on Facebook, and I did a very big blunder. I did not start recording on the Zoom. Fortunately, it is there in the Facebook, so I will download it and then I will upload it on the YouTube also. The Facebook one is readily available. So once we upload it, you can always check the Signia Healthcare YouTube channel and the Signia Healthcare Facebook. So it's just, I'm looking at the Facebook whether it is streaming correctly. It is streaming correctly. So that's why I keep looking at my right side. On my mobile, I am watching that it is streaming right. Anybody else, before we wrap it up, anybody has any question? Hello, anybody else has any question?
Thankam, this is Clara. First of all, I would like to congratulate Elizabeth for having identified the right problem, which is the need of the hour. As she said, the scripts are very much customized to each organization. So I absolutely understand the outcome that she has enjoyed, because we have also tried a few of the scripts like a communication bundle and it did work. But even if we have 5 hospitals, one script for one of our hospital will never suit the other hospital. So I absolutely accept what Elizabeth has told. Congratulations, Elizabeth. It was very nice hearing, and all the best for future innovations, further innovations in this scripting.
Thank you so much, Clara.
So,
And for bringing in such vibrant connect and discussions.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
thank you. And that's what Signia stands for. Signia is there to ensure that we do everything that is possible to make the nurses and nursing tomorrow better than today. So, one of the must do is to celebrate nurses in whichever form it is. And this is something unique, as I told, in service, people doing PhD and then on very relevant topics. So I really hope that today all the people who are sitting here would consider scripting, identifying the touch points. See, that is already a given. The touch points are the same in any hospital. So would you start picking up on few things and start scripting? And definitely I will recommend, focus on Teachback, because that is one tool that can go a long way. And then of course, almost all the corporate hospitals have enough metrics to look at it before and after. So if not a thesis, I'm very sure that a smaller patient improvement activities can be done in a PDSA cycle. I'm very sure that can happen. So with that, I'm very happy to announce that before we say bye to Dr. Elizabeth Joseph, next week on 19th we will have Dr. Shine Anil, who has done PhD. So now Elizabeth have already told that they both did together. So I'm very curious to know whether was it the same topic or is it a different topic?
It's a different topic. It's a very
Okay.
interesting topic as well.
I really don't know. She hasn't yet told me, so I'm not aware. So we do have interesting 2 more, PhD holders coming. 19th, Dr. Shine Anil, and on 30th of October, it will be Captain Dr. Usha Banerjee. So I really hope that, you'll spread the word around and more people will come. And this particular recording will definitely be available on Facebook, and we will also upload it on the YouTube, and we will share the link in the group also. So very big thank you for all the people who came here, and some people were watching on the Facebook as well. More views will come, as time goes. More and more people actually watch on Facebook. I'm really sorry today, my throat is irritating. Though I was not the one talking today, it was Elizabeth talking, but still my throat is irritating. So Elizabeth, thank you so very much, and wish you all the best. And I hope that I have also got some cues from you, so I will also be working around something. Maybe when I am doing leadership courses, I'll start giving some assignments. Why don't you script one touch point? Maybe that will start creating a chain of things. Each hospital will benefit from scripting. Many people might not even value that because there was one downside discussion that happened, was that it will become more robotic. So I used to tell them, without scripting, anyway they are robots, they don't talk anyway. So why not put some words into their mouth? Slowly they will have the emotion also. I think we need to start, I think, better not to ask why it can't be done. It is better to be done. I totally believe in scripting, and I'm so happy that a PhD has been done on that topic. And now I am far more hopeful. You don't necessarily have to be very academic oriented and then it goes into a shelf and nothing happens after that. So I'm really looking forward to Shine joining us next week, and later it will be Dr. Usha. So thank you so much, Elizabeth, on behalf of Signia Healthcare and also all the people. So can I request those who would like to come on video to come for a moment so we can take a screenshot? Whoever is okay. I am not compelling anyone. So if you can come on the video, it will be nice. I'll take a screenshot. You can have your baby also along with you, Pearl, no problem. More people, more people. I know it is later in the day. Not everybody is ready for a video shoot, but it'll be nice if I can get a full screen. Okay, so whoever is there, no problem. At the camera, and there you go, smile. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, Elizabeth John Sane. I confused you with Madam Elizabeth John. There is Elizabeth David. Oh, there are many Elizabeth. I think namesake many Elizabeth came here. Yeah?
Madam Elizabeth Joseph. I am Elizabeth Johnson.
I know. I can see that, but your spelling is Elizabeth John Sane. So I thought, oh, okay. Nice to have many Elizabeth here. Oh, is that Elizabeth David? My dog, you look so different.
Yes, Tangam. Hi.
I cannot recognize you. Sorry. you look so different. Oh God. Okay. I'm really struggling to find the old Elizabeth. Huh?
Next on the pipeline, Tangam, PhD scholar.
Okay. How many are the PhD scholars now here? Okay. So now there are some PhD scholars and there are future PhDs here. So I will wish each and everyone all the very best, and please select topics that will actually benefit nurses and patients, and let me know. Then I will definitely capture your experience into a video and keep it there for everyone else to come and learn from there. So thank you so much, Elizabeth, and God bless you. Somehow you managed, and thank you to your family and to your boss and your team for helping you to achieve this milestone, and God bless you. Thank you so much, and thanks everyone, and good night and take care. Bye bye, and see you on 19th. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, thank you. Bye, Tangam. Bye, all of you.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.